Hello everyone, welcome to 3ddesignacademy.com. In this lesson, we will continue with part 30 of the Lamborghini Aventador project. So continuing on, in the last lesson, I believe I left off while trying to adjust this angle. So, however, if you look at this image here, I think they're supposed to be same angle. So I'm going to do a little bit of adjustments. So first of all, I do think that this needs to be covered by this surface over here. So I'm going to make it a little bit longer. I know there's supposed to be an opening here, but I think this takes precedence. So I'm just going to untrim this piece over here, and I'm just going to lengthen it until it is completely covered, even if barely. Okay, so now that's good. And let's just check the proportions against several images. So, well, actually, you know what? Before I do that, let me just untrim this piece over here. And I'm just going to do a fit curve over here like this. Well, I think I could have just done a duplicate, but that's okay. They basically do about the same thing. So I'm just going to snap a curve over here, and I'm going to project it from the top like this. And I'm going to trim this piece over here. So now the angle seems very similar. So maybe I can just leave it like this. So, but before I do that, I do want to check the proportions of this against the other images. So let's do that first. So I'm just going to make this maybe a black color like the rest of it. So let's just do that so that I have a clear division. Okay, and let's just check it against the image. This one probably not the best reference. Okay, so let's compare against this one. So I'm just going to try to check the angle, make sure that it's somewhat similar. I probably need to tilt it down a little bit. Now it's kind of really hard to compare this one against this one. Although I'm starting to get a little bit worried about this angle, so I'm wondering if I need to change that. Because right now, yes, the angles are slightly different, but I can probably just trim it out. But one of the differences, you'll see that this is a lot more. It has a lot more peak, and if you see this angle, you'll see it's actually quite angular compared to this one, which is a little bit more flatter. So, and although also the angles are a little bit different, so I think that's okay. That said, I probably need to trim this a little bit so that angles are a little bit similar. I'm wondering if the canvas is a little bit off. Yeah, I'm wondering if it is. Because I prefer to keep all the design lines as similar as possible. So actually, let's just check it against this one. Yeah, so that is different. But I am also following the canvas. Worst case scenario, I can always try to update this one so that it's a little bit similar to this one. But let's just check the angle of this. Because right now that is the same. Another thing that I can do is I can make this a little bit more progressive so that the lines are, I guess, transitioning from a lot of angle to less angle over here. But I do definitely think that this probably needs to be updated a little bit. Now, that said, this is a glass plate, which is a little bit different from this one. So let's see if I can find an image. Okay, so this one looks a little bit different. Okay, so maybe this is okay. Because if you see this one over here, I do see quite a gap between this one and this one, so maybe I can just leave it as is. Yeah, I think I'm just going to leave it. Okay, so I'm just going to check it from a little bit far. Okay, so yeah, I think this is totally fine. I'm just going to leave it as is. I don't think we need to make a huge change. And because I did lengthen this, I think the angles are similar on this one, so I think I can leave that as well. So, well, less changes done than I expected initially. So I think that's good. That said, however, I do need to make sure that we, I guess, implement this feature in here. So let's go ahead and do that next. So I'm just going to see if the, well, let's just change the color back to gray so that I can actually see stuff. And if you look at this car over here, you'll see, okay. So now, actually, you know what? I'm going to lengthen this just a tad more so that it actually goes below over here. And I'm also going to use a stretch tool to snap this here. So this is, well, this is just a standard Alias thing. There's a lot of back and forth between design, all the changes that you have to make, but it's, well, that's what you have to do. All right, that said, however, let's go ahead and put these features in. I'm just going to go to a perspective view where I can maybe see this better. I'm going to actually turn this off. Okay, so I'm going to, well, this is actually a glass piece, which is a little bit different. I'm going to see if I can get a perspective view. Maybe that shows that area a little bit better. And I'm going to work on this intake feature that looks like an intake, but I think, well, I think it's more like an outtake. So let's go ahead and find some images. I think this one might be good. Okay, so I think this one shows the proportion a little bit. So you'll see that there's this feature over here. And let's lay out some curves. So what I'm going to do is you'll see that there's, well, I guess we can just reference of, we do have a image reference, so I think we can just use this. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay out some curves for this one. So I'm just going to copy and paste this curve right here. And I think that's going to be a nice curve for us to use for this feature. Okay, so if you look at it from this view, it looks like it's it angles a little bit. I don't think it's completely parallel. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm just going to lay out a curve for this piece over here. Probably not that much. So I'm just going to do a center pivot and I'm just going to rotate it like this. And I'm just going to lay out a curve over here like that. And I'm just going to make a hole. Looks like there's a little feature over here, but I'm going to leave that for later. I just want to get the proportions right before I add any detail features like that. Okay, so I'm just going to do that, and I'm going to create a surface that goes down. So for this one, what you can do is I'm going to create a curve first of all. Well, actually, let's just duplicate it. So I'm just going to duplicate this one over here. I'm going to snap a curve like that, or snap the pivot there. I'm just going to rotate it like this, and I'm going to do a rail over here, and I'm going to lay out some surfaces over here. So let's see, I'm probably, well, actually for this one I think it might be easier to create some guidelines. So I'm going to snap a curve over here, and I'm going to just create a curve like this. Same thing over here. I'll lay out a curve like that, and basically these will act as a guideline because I think the distances are about similar. And I'm just going to lay out a curve. Well, I'm going to hide these for now, say invisible. I'm going to snap a curve. Oh, snap a curve from here, and I'm going to snap a curve right here. Same thing. I'm going to snap a curve here, and I'm going to snap a curve right here, like that. And I'm just going to use a rail in order to create this triangle piece like that. Now, because we are using essentially the same surface, just rotate it down, you'll see that even though I'm not using a triangle, it has a very nice line that's going all the way through. So this is something that you want to do. Okay, so for this section, I think the opening is supposed to be, well, I guess it's right over here. So you just want to grab a curve like this, and I'm going to just project. And I'm going to use that to trim. And let's see. I think that might be a little bit too far inboard. So I probably want to close the hole a little bit. I don't know why it looks so big. I don't know if it's the angle. Well, let's look at a top view. Well, actually, that does look quite big. So maybe it's just the angle? I'm not sure. Because at least if you look at it from this view, it doesn't look weird. So I think that's okay. But from this view, I don't know why it looks so big compared to the image. Okay. So even from this view, I think the proportions are appropriate for what it is. Okay, maybe I'll just need to develop more surfaces. Okay, so I think the proportion is not too bad. I think probably the center needs to be a little bit thicker. So I'm probably going to go ahead and do that. Yes, I do think that this needs to be a little bit thicker. So let's just reference this, and I'm going to bring this curve in. Actually, you know what? Let's just move both of these like that. We still have history, so we don't need to do a lot over here. And I'm just going to bring this curve in like this. Actually, let me just hide this for a second so that I can get the proportion right on this one. So I'm just going to turn the shade off. Maybe a reflective shader might look a little bit better. And I think I might need to angle this in a little bit more. So let me just rotate using my right mouse button, like this. And let's just take a look. Okay, I think that's closer, but I still think that I might want to bring it just a little bit more, make it a little bit thicker. And let's just compare it against other images. So I'm just going to get the perspective like that. And let's just update this curve over here. The thickness looks pretty good. We still have to add a chamfer here, but that's for a little bit later. Okay. I don't know why it looks super thin here. I wonder if I need to angle this a little bit differently. Because in order to do this, I would have to bring this line a little bit rearward in vehicle and bring this line forward. But if I look at other images, I don't think that is necessarily true. So this is kind of a mystery. Because at least from this view, maybe I just need to chop this off, because maybe that's messing up with the proportions a little bit. Okay. Well, first of all, let me just make sure that this location is good, or the thickness of this piece is good, which I think it is much closer than before. So I think that portion is good. So I think it's just this opening that I have to play with. And while I'm at it, let me just check a few different perspectives to make sure that this looks good. I think this is about halfway. I think this is okay, so I think this is a little bit longer than this one, so I think that's totally fine. as far as this thickness goes. This one, yeah, I still think that I probably need to bring this a little bit more rearward. Okay, so I'll just do that. And this angle goes, I think that looks pretty good. Let's check out from this angle. I think I might want to bring it in just a little bit more. Yeah, let's bring this curve a little bit more inboard, like that. Like this. Oops. I just need to move this one. Okay, so I think that looks good. Just go back to the orange car. Okay, I'm just going to lay this down so that the perspectives are similar, although it's kind of hard to see. That's a problem. So maybe I'll just use a clay color. Like this. Well, I think it's pretty close, so I would say that's good enough. And okay, so now a couple of problems. So let me just go back to the original gray shader. So the opening here looks like it's a little bit smaller than what it should be. Now I don't think the proportions here are any, I don't think they are wrong, because all the lines are according to the blueprint, so I think that's good. So maybe I'll just try to change the proportions a little bit on all surfaces. Not change the proportion, but build it up a little bit more. So I'm pretty happy with all the curve locations, so I'm just going to put it there. And it does need a, I guess, like a chamfer feature over here, so I'm going to do that. And let's see if I can get this correct. Okay, so for this one, I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a curve fillet. So all you have to just go to duplicate, click and hold, and there's a curve fillet tool right here. And what you want to do is, instead of, well, I'm just going to choose chord, and for the chamfer, it's going to be G0. And now you just want to click a curve like this, and there's your chamfer right there. And I'm just going to go over here as well. And I just want to make sure that the size is appropriate. So I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. Let's go back to Alias. And probably needs to at least double. And let's see if that is good. So chord length of 20, like this. I'm going to look at it from this side. Actually, that looks pretty good. Okay, so now what you want to do is project these curves, and it's just going to be trim, or discard, I should say, like this. And let's take a look. And now I'm going to just snap a curve. Oh, this one needs to be adjusted. I'm going to snap a curve here, and well, actually, you know what? This one I think I can just leave as is. Okay, so now if you see over here, it actually needs to line up right exactly at this point at the edge. So what I can do is I can just use a stretch tool to snap it over here, and I can use one to snap it over here. Same thing over here, and I'm going to snap it here and snap one over here. And I'm just going to make sure that the proportions are correct. So maybe I do need to move this. Okay, so I'm just going to snap this curve over here, and I'm going to snap this one over here like that. And I'm going to use a stretch tool, snap the curves back to their locations, to the edge. And I think this one probably needs to swing a little bit more inboard. So just use the right mouse one like this. Maybe too much. Like that. And I'm going to use the stretch tool to snap it over here. On the rail, it's going to be 1 and 1. like that. And let's just check the perspective. Well, maybe it's just the perspective that's messing me up. Maybe something like that. It still looks a little bit wide in this picture, but I'm not sure if that's true for other views. So let me just take a look, because I don't know why. Well, one thing I can do is maybe the angle is a little bit too much, because if you see not this image, but if you see this image, you'll see that how shallow this is. So maybe that's what I need to do. Okay, so I'm just going to grab this curve like this over here. I'm just going to rotate it using my middle mouse button like that, and I'll just bring it up and make this a little bit shallow, and that will close up this hole. And maybe that's just something that I needed to do. Okay, maybe a little bit too much, I think. So maybe I'll just bring it down. And I do need to update this angle over here, so I'm just going to snap it back right here. And that looks more appropriate. It's getting closer. I don't think it's still there yet. Another thing that I can do is, because we changed this angle, I can probably push this out a little bit more so that it appears a little bit wider compared to the height. I still think that we need to bring this up a little bit more. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to grab this center curve again in order to rotate the surface a little bit more like this. And I'll just grab this one right here. And I'm going to grab this one right here and make it a little bit more shallow. So proportionally, it looks a little bit wider. Still not there yet, I don't think. Another thing that I can do in order to make this appear wider is, actually I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. Maybe instead of 20, maybe I'll go 17. Same thing over here. Maybe I'll go even to 15. Yeah, I think it definitely needs to be a little bit smaller. So let's grab this one. I'm gonna make it 15 quarter length. Same thing over here, 15. And what that'll do is make this appear a little bit wider, because the chamfer, start of the chamfer is a little bit further outboard on each side. Okay, and another thing that I can do is I can just angle this out, angle both of these surfaces out like this, so that it's a little bit wider over here, and it's a little bit wider over here, like that. I'm gonna use the stretch tool over here. I think that looks good over here, this one. And let's just make sure that I snap this over here so that it's actually located where it needs to be. Now the only problem is, because the surface changed, or the trim location changed, so you'll notice that the rail is acting a little bit funny. You just have to rebuild it. That's all you have to do. It's annoying, but you still have to do it, and it's pretty simple to do. So just do that. And same thing over here. I'm going to just line this up over here and use the rail like this. And I'm just going to check the relationship between like this angle and this angle. Okay, so a little bit better than before. Definitely closer. Yeah, actually much closer. So I think we are pretty much there. Okay, so let's just check to make sure the proportions are good by checking a few more images. Okay, so let's just maybe check it from this view. Yeah, I think making it shallow definitely helped. Now it looks much closer than before. So I think that was what I needed to do. Okay. So opening here looks pretty good. Yeah, pretty happy with the result. Okay, so I think we are pretty much done with this portion. We still have a fillet to do, more details to do. But as far as just a basic shape, as the basic shape goes, I think we're pretty much there. So maybe I think I can either move on to the side or work on the rear spoiler. But since the spoiler is a little bit of a accessory, I think maybe I'll leave that for later, and I think I'm going to move on to this part. All right, let's just, before we finish though, I just want to take a look at the rear. Okay, with the engine cover on, I think everything looks much more detailed. Looks like the car is coming alive. I'm pretty happy with the progress. All right, so that is it for part 30. We will continue building the car in the next tutorial, and thank you guys for watching.